Good evening, everyone. It's nice to see everyone here. Thank you so much for being here. Tonight is Thursday, October 26th, and can I have someone make sure to return from public session? Rory, seconded by Bill. All those in favor?
Aye.
6-0. So we'll begin with the pledge. You can join me.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So nice to see everyone here. We're looking forward to an exciting update on our capital project. So fun to see all the renderings. We're looking forward to it. But let's start with board announcements. If Andrew, if you could begin, that'd be great.
Thank you very much. I would love to. So actually, it was last week, the week of October 16th to the 20th, that New York State declares Education Recognition Week. Governor Hochul actually issues a proclamation to say thank you to all those board members. We know how much time and service you give to school communities. We know the boards all across the state and the roughly 700 school districts in New York State do the same. And we're all enormously grateful for the work that you do day in and day out on behalf of all the students of Potomac and again, across all of New York State. And I'm thrilled tonight to welcome Angela Garofalo, who's going to say a few words on behalf of Parent Council to our Board of Education. Thank you, Angela.
Welcome, Angela.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. And I apologize if I sip some water. I'm just getting over a little bit of a cold. I assure you it is just a cold. On behalf of the members of the 2023-2024 Kona School District Parent Council, we join the state of New York in saluting local Board of Education members during New York State School Board Week, October 16th through the 20th. This commemorative week recognizes the tremendous contributions made by school board members across New York State, including you, the Katonah-Lewisboro School District Board of Education members, who are tasked with governing public education under New York law. You, as the Katonah-Lewisboro School Board members, have the responsibility of leading our schools. Your sustained leadership, honesty, integrity, confidence, along with your concerns for our children's emotional and social well-being, are the main contributing factors which makes Katonah-Lewisboro a top school district. Each of you contribute your own strength for our school district, and these different contributions and perspectives make you an impressive board. You are able to navigate your differences, pick up on each other's perspectives and strengths, and ultimately arrive at the best possible outcome for our students and our schools. We are fortunate to have such a dedicated group of volunteers leading our school district and looking out for the best interest of our children. We want to thank you for your leadership, your hard work, your commitment to our students and our community, and your support mission to continually improve education for our children. We recognize the countless unpaid hours you spend serving our students, faculty, administration, and staff. Most importantly, we appreciate every one of you who have stepped up to guide the education in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's really kind, and we love seeing you, and it's nice to have people here. And thank you for our lovely arrangement in the back. Our fruit's delicious. I'll definitely be hitting that up after the meeting. And thanks for all that you do. We are so fortunate in this. We have really active PTOs for every school, as well as our SEPTO organization, and you guys do a tremendous amount as well, and volunteer unpaid hours. So one volunteer to another set of volunteers. We really thank you as well for everything that you do on behalf of our students and our school community. So it's great to be together. Thank you. Do we have any other board announcements?
Just briefly, thank you so much for the Learning Cafe. I know most of us were there. It feels like a long time ago, but I think we had a really nice turnout and a very interesting discussion about artificial intelligence. I see everybody nodding. So great fall learning cafe. We look forward to sharing out website with the slides and whatnot. But a bold conversation to invite us to bring our minds to bear on artificial intelligence and its potential ramifications and impact and opportunities for schools and for students. And thank you also for the KES Learning Walk earlier this week. Thank you to our classroom teachers for their courage in allowing us to view some of their early work with Amplify Science, the new science curriculum that we adopted, and just for the opportunity to talk with administration about how the implementation is being experienced by our elementary back and students and administrators. And it was great. So we really thank you for all of that.
It was a real insight, the work that has to go on in order to implement these sort of changes. It's not just, get a set of curricula and do it. There's a lot of adaptation has to happen, and this is very early days, and it was really courageous to have us walk in those early days and sit there and watch. So it was very much appreciated.
I just want to thank our PTO. Rory and I had the pleasure of attending a impromptu presentation by our own staff, because they had actually had a speaker who was supposed to come and talk about digital wellness for students, and that speaker unfortunately was not able to be there. And our one of our staff developers and our direct technology sort of jumped in, and we had a really interesting discussion around technology and its use in our classrooms and its benefits and its drawbacks. And it was really terrific to be a part of that conversation. So we appreciate.
It was great. It was great. I'm sure the lady would have been awesome, but Mike Samatano and Chris Nelson just took the reins and gave us a really insightful presentation on technology, both in the school and the use of technology by the elementary school kids outside of the school. And there was some interesting conflict in the room. I mean, some people thought it was great. Some people thought, we'd prefer if there's less screen time. And there was some really good open community dialogue. It was so healthy and heartwarming, actually. It was really great opportunity. So thanks to Ashland for hosting us. It was great at PTO. Yeah, great.
I really appreciate you sharing that, because I know we're trying to be more present at some of the PTOPs, and so I'm reminded that I would be remiss if I didn't thank Mr. Swiatowicz, who also hosted a principal's coffee on Tuesday this week. Very well attended. There were, I think, between 15 and 20 parents there. It was really nice to be in person with so many parents. And many topics were covered. There were some questions about the library and the ongoing challenge associated with not being able to access books, library space itself, conversation about clubs and how to better make them visible so that more students are encouraged to stay after school more days of the week, current events in our classrooms and how. And then we talk about current events. There was a lot of positive feedback on circles and the manner in which this is really helping middle school students get to each other at a deeper level. So it was really positive, nice feedback to hear.
Andrew, did you have any?
Yeah, just a few quick announcements. I also was going to say thank you to our board colleagues and to the entire community for coming out for the Learning Cafe. And I'll say a little bit more about it during board dialogue tonight in order to keep things moving along for now for our guests. I want to also thank our local fire department who've all visiting our elementary schools of late. And I encourage board members and community members to read the stories that are on our website and see the photos of those visits. It's always a nice thing to see as they teach our elementary students about fire safety. Our fall, the time is flying this year, more than ever it seems. So fall sports is winding down. We had some very exciting volleyball matches here on us tonight, and our volleyball team is continuing in its playoff run into the second round, I believe. Quarterfinals beginning of next week. Varsity field hockey had an amazing season and unfortunately lost a very close game today in the sectional semis, I believe. So congratulations on an amazing season there. From our swimming and diving teams, which is, as you know, an individual competition as well as team, but Jessica Crane has qualified to go on to New York State and compete up in Webster, New York in November, which is amazing. And then actually cross country is one sport that's still in season and continuing. And congratulations to our other teams, our boys and girls soccer teams and our football teams for their great seasons this fall. So congratulations to all. And then since we don't meet again until November 16th after tonight, just a few upcoming things. Elementary and teacher conferences will be happening a week or so at the elementary schools. We have a staff development on November 7th. My colleague here and Julia Drake, who's not able to be with us tonight, have put a ton of work into the day, as well as all our administrators around the district. Our students will not be in school on November 7th, China, and you won't be in school either on November 10th when we recognize Veterans Day. And then on November 15th, the day before our next meeting, it's the annual not pre-kindergarten, but before you start kindergarten orientation for those families whose children will start in kindergarten in the fall of 24. And that's at KES on the morning of November 15th. It's always a really nice event to attend also. And that's it.
Great, thank you. So without further ado, our presentation tonight is from our capital projects team, and Russ Davidson is here and has some others with him. And can't read their name tags, but Russ, you'll introduce your team. Okay, great. So we're moving forward with capital project work. We've had some approvals, I think, back, so that's very exciting. And they're going to give us an update. So welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. I'm here tonight. I'm Russ Davidson, president of KG&D Architects and your project executive. And I'm here with Richard Margraf, who's been working the elementary school projects and a parent in the district. Lauren Irons, a talented young woman focusing on middle school and high school. And then when we had one of our firm members in the audience, Lauren Reichelt, who wanted to observe a board meeting. So I would tell you, her first board meeting ever. And I would say they're normally a little bit different than this, and this is a really nice board meeting. So we're very excited about your capital project, and we have a big team working on it. And there's literally 2 people still in office because John Jay High School is being submitted, I think, like Monday. And so it's a lot of people working on it. Say between our office and sub-consultants, you've got about 25 professionals work on planning your capital project at this point. Wow. So just we bring them all, but and we talked as we were told that it should be 15 minutes, so we're going to talk quickly. But if you want to talk more, you can stop us and just. But we do have a bunch of slides, so.
Nothing never causes problems.
It's always the first test, right?
That thing never works.
So we're not going to read this whole progress report, but a lot has happened since the passage of the bond. You've got us signed up. We've done site surveys and test borings, as well as a test well at Catone Elementary. By the way, that test well for the ground source heat pump system or geothermal system came out just expected. So we have oil conductivity, and that allowed the engineer to finish designing that system. And Richard will talk a little bit about that in a minute. We've been meeting a lot with the schools. I know some of you have been there. So we're doing a lot of listening, and they reviewed all the design with the administrators prior to submitting to SED. We've also been working with Lisa and Lavoie to add some of your annual capital projects into bond submissions with separate funding, so that an economy of scale, and we get you permitting all at the same time. So this has been a complicated effort, but it's a few $1 million worth of work that you planned on doing in the next 2 years. So rather than having projects piling up on top of each other, we've consolidated them, and we think it's a great plan. So we actually have approval for one of your bond projects, and it's going to be going to bid fairly soon. The John Jay Middle School window replacement, and again, one of the other projects that was combined with it is the outdoor classroom and inclusive playground, which is going to be right outside the middle school auditorium and tech lab. We'll talk about that in a minute. So that project has been in the works, and when you pass the bond, we were able to add the windows to it, which actually brings aid to that playground project. So The rest of the projects are at SED for review. Since the bond passed, they eliminated an expedited review process, but say it takes 16 weeks to get approvals, and your middle school Windows project did take 16 weeks. So we're hoping that they hold to that. Don't really know until you get them. We also have, as we mentioned, the high school going out in the next day or two. And then work is going to start to happen next year, and middle school and high school are going to take a couple of years done. So this is the John Jay Middle School plan of the outdoor classroom. And does this thing have a pointer? Yes, but it doesn't work on me. So you can see the row of trees is the entrance to the auditorium. So that parking lot is going to be converted into sort of an outdoor classroom, inclusive playground, and the handicap parking is going to move up a tier. It's connected by ramps. It will have a play surface, and we're showing some play structure in these renderings, but there's going to be more collaboration with SEPTA, and that's going to be purchased off state contract, not the bid process. So it'll be inclusive. We've also got, so that's a rendering of what the auditorium entrance will look like going forward, a little different than the asphalt parking lot. And on the right, you'll see the play structures. I mean, what we were showing there are inclusive play structures. One that actually you can make music on, it's designed for a little older students, and the other one allows wheelchairs to get in and play with others, but it's an inclusive piece as well. So trails and lighting, connection to the new tech lab. And then looking the other way, we've got this sort of amphitheater to mitigate the two sides. And actually, we made a recent change to the design so that the handicap ramp actually connects to the upper level of the amphitheater. So wheelchair-bound students can get to the front of it and to the top and be fully involved. And the thinking here is sort of a hangout place. You can have presentations. We're bringing power and data. You can have an outdoor monitor, or literally after lunch, students can go out and have a lesson or watch a movie, and forbid the news. So it's another view of it's going to have fencing and be protected from the road areas. And we think it's going to be a nice sort of informal outdoor space right near the middle school. Change and update that middle school entrance. And this came after last year and before the bond, looking at every place on campus with the middle school and the SEPTA group on how best to solve this issue. Because right now the students travel all the way up to the playing field and back, and that's not a great thing from a safety point of view or a time management point of view. So on to Meadow Pond. So security vestibule, this is a little plan. Security vestibule will be on the left side of the entrance. It'll connect to an indoor space. And again, we've worked with the building administrators on this. New security vestibules are happening at basically all 5 schools. So this is the #1 recommendation from security consultants to improve security. You do a good job of security now, but the buildings really didn't respond to this whole change in school security. So this will get caught up. And that's what it'll look like. It's not a big change, and that's the whole point. It'll be built in underneath the overhang, but it will allow the security person to get sort of out of the vestibule into a desk. Well, they'll have things like heat and a view to the outdoors. And they won't be in the same space as visitors when they come in. You might remember that all 3 buildings getting updates to the library and what's now called a stream lab or a STEM lab or a maker space. Pick your name. Catona Elementary called it a stream lab, so we spread that over all the same. But we had very productive meetings with all the librarians district-wide to come up with a uniform approach at each level. And some of the principles there are a few less books, not the librarians agreed to the amount, but lowering stacks, better line of sight, rid of big built-in circulation desks, which really aren't needed or used anymore, and more space for students. So classroom space and also a variety of seating types, because informal learning areas are more popular and productive, especially with individual devices and technology. And the Streamlabs are similarly have a couple of uniform approaches. One is a small room with double doors with a curved background with a green screen. So a little sort of ad hoc video studio in each of the Streamlabs, because video is a part of literacy today. It's the YouTube generation, and they do it, and this gives them some sort of facilities for it. And then other sort of maker space activity areas. And then we've also tried to incorporate in each one of these a window to the corridor where work can be displayed, that everybody in the school who walks by gets a little sort of accidental inspiration of hey, what they made there, isn't that cool? I want to get involved. This is sort of the rendering of the Metapond Streamlab, and library and Streamlab. And our technology allows us to actually put the carpet we selected into the renderings. So it's going to be a fun and brighter, a lighter feel, all these spaces. And that's the Streamlab. The window to the corridor is in the back right. A lot of the flexible furniture will be either purchased or reused if you've already gotten it, because we were involved in that process. And part of the other work that's necessary that was added to the bond for the sake of permitting is modifying a number of rooms at Meadow Pond to serve your special needs population. So that requires us to have in-room toilets and support areas. So there's 4 locations in Meadow Pond that are going to be renovated to accommodate your special needs population at that site. That'll be a permanent renovation. And we're all working towards the goal of getting that done this summer. So it's in September of 2024, and that is on target at this point. Increase Miller also gets a new entry vestibule, very similar to the approach to Meadow Pond. It's moved to the left side of the entrance. That's what it looked like. Again, our goal here is to make it functional, but as if it was always there. Probably the biggest new construction element in the elementary schools is the classroom addition to increase elementary. Again, this is to replace 2 modular and add one classroom. So it's a net add of 1, eventually gets rid of the modulars. We looked at several locations for this. This is different than what we own pre-bond, but it's the consensus of everybody involved that this is the best place for the addition. It takes up some outdoor play space that is not heavily used, and it does not require relocation of any playgrounds. So it's easier to manage during construction, less impactful after construction. We also work with them carefully to assess all the small space they need, and that's what you're seeing with the psychology, social worker, RT1, 2, and plus 4 of them. The area in red is going to be bid as an alternate, which is 2 additional small group spaces, because once we designed this, square footage grew. We're happy to try and be ambitious and get you everything you need, but we do need to create structures to make sure that it meets your budget. So there will be more of that happening as we move to detailed budget. But this is an interior rendering of what those classrooms look like. We're trying to working with sloping ceilings with an acoustic deck, some wood structure, which is a little warmer. And that's a north-facing window wall with a light shelf so that it can be brightly daylit spaces. And that's a view from the outside with the small group spaces and the new classroom areas. Also at Increase Miller and Meadow Pond are wing space renovations. This is just mostly cosmetic upgrades to sort of return them to the formal learning areas they were originally intended to be, and to remove and reorganize some of what are called the bump spaces that got built into these. So you've already purchased a lot of furniture for these spaces. This is just an image of what one would look like completely restored. And at Increase Miller, there's also the same library renovation in Streamlab, a little bit different configuration, but you can see that with no circulation desk, you get better classroom areas, and it's going to be just a bright, a more welcoming space for students, and give you some options on different learning environments. And there's the stream lab, and then again in the back, you'll see the window to the hallway where work can be displayed for everybody who passes. And I'm going to give Richard an opportunity to talk for a minute about this exciting slide, which actually Lauren in the audience did that shows your geothermal well field.
So there's a lot of exciting things that we're seeing in this presentation in your capital bond projects. This is one of the things that we actually won't see once it's completed. It's a geothermal well field that will be located under your upper field at Katona Elementary. There's about 80 wells going into the field. They're going to be drilled to a depth of 500 feet. And once they're finished, they're going to be 4 feet below the surface, so you won't even know they're there. You'll be able to utilize the playing field as if you did before, with no knowledge that the field is below there, or impact that it's below there. Once it's completed, all of those levels will be routed back to the building in the vault, and then feed your building and air condition the student spaces. Another feature that we're adding, similar to the Increase Miller and Meadow Pond projects, is a security booth. We worked on locating this with the administrators at the schools, and this was the space which was a best fit. This particular location allows line sight to the rear entrance and the front entrance, and will be connected with an audio-visual measure to allow access to lower entrance where there's an elevator. Provides two points of accessibility for those that are perhaps handicapped or wheelchair-bound at the entrance and the lower entrance, and still maintains the front as your main entrance. It's also connected to main office, so that's a nice incorporation there. The way that this is going to be achieved is this seamless glass panel that is incorporated into these nice warm wood tones of the security desk. We are incorporating into your historic green tile and terrazzo. We're keeping all of that intact, and we're trying to be subtle in the modification that we made here, paying more of a homage and trying to be disruptive to what you have there, which is a beautiful setup. As you can see in set picture here, what it ended up being fits very nicely. Another feature of the geothermal is that there will be a substantial amount of ducts that come throughout the school in order to carry the conditioned air to the occupied spaces. A way to achieve this is we have to run vertical ducts from the attic all the way down to the lower level. And rather than be intrusive to classroom spaces, we're running those main trunks in the hallway. And a good way to conceal those are these arches, which pick up on the wood tones that we're seeing at the security vestibule. So there's a nice tie in there. We've located these in a position that logically follows the terrazzo. So it'll look like this main entry is its own zone. We will achieve a color match with the tile as best we can. But again, we're trying to create this its own little entry zone with the wood tones and finishes to match the existing. Katona Elementary is also receiving a library upgrade. This is a complete renovation of the space that we have here. We're moving the Streamlab from the plan right side to the plan left side, and we're really opening up that back to let in a lot of natural light. Across the hall, we're also adding an EA toilet room in an existing storage space. So you'll still have half of that storage space, but this will be an oversized room capable of handling any needs that the student population may require. These are some of the renderings of that space. Seeing a lot more light permeation. We're seeing zones. You can see how it's delineated with our different seal patterns and textures. We're seeing the Streamlab off in the distance there to the right. We're seeing also different zones. What we have here is book zone. In the back, there's a classroom with a screen. And where the teacher's standing off to the left is another zone that could be a classroom-oriented space. Opposite view of that room, just seeing it from the different angle. Again, a lot more light coming in from this direction, which is a way to brighten up an already excellent space. This is the Streamlab. Again, we're incorporating a room to this space and giving a lot of the furniture that you already have placed into this newly renovated area.
And Lauren's going to talk a little bit about the middle school.
Yes. So a few things to know before we get into this plan. The John Jay Middle School is getting upgrades to its HVAC system in the 2003 edition, along with the E-building wing. So we're going to get AC, guys. And then another thing that was pointed out is some lift upgrades, and they're going to be toward the main office, which is at the B stair and also by the cafeteria. So it's going to be a hydraulic lift upgrade. So they hopefully are quieter and move a little faster than the current system that they have. Much like the elementary schools that Russ pointed out and Richard, there is a new security vestibule at the middle school where we can have a vetting process for visitors come into the building during school hours and not be accepted in until they are vetted by the security desk. And then here is that exterior view of the security addition, where we really wanted to be seamless with the existing condition of the building. And along with adding this vestibule, we're stain and paint onto the existing building so that there's a seamless connection, and to cover up the discoloration that the current CMU pattern has, so that it is all fresh new. Part of the bond is to do some program upgrades to the Family and Consumer Science wing. Part of those upgrades including expanding the culinary program and also adding a greenhouse. In the blue on this plan, that's where the greenhouse is proposed, where we have a connection between two classrooms. The middle classroom, the middle purple classroom, is a flex instruction space that can be utilized by two culinary classroom orientated spaces. So both classrooms could use this flex space at the same time if they wanted to introduce students to the same cooking lecture. They could start out here in this classroom, move into the greenhouse, pick some herbs, and then move on to their respective culinary spaces. This is the exterior view of the greenhouse. It's nestled into the corner of one of the home economic spaces, which you can see the right. Those are the exterior windows to that classroom. And we're going to get a lot of natural sunlight here, and it's going to be a ventilated space, so it's not to get hot during the warmer days. And then there's a view of one of the culinary classrooms. The intention of this classroom is to have full focus to the front of the room, so you can cook along with your teacher. And you can have the lecture style seating, which is what we're showing here. And then you can move these flexible tables to the back so that you can have your now culinary class. And so you could cut on the counter, or you can even use the mobile table behind as a secondary prep space. In the secondary culinary classroom, it's a little bit of a different style. This one, we have perimeter counters on either side of the room with the flexible tables in the center, so you can have them facing towards each other so students can be more integrated and learn from each other, or you can easily turn them to face the front of the classroom. We also have technology upgrades to the technology wing. We are completely reorganizing the layout of this wing. So beforehand in the bond proposal, we had one large technology classroom. And after speaking with the users and even some students, it's best to keep three classrooms for this space so that all grades can use it and use it for different purposes. The goal of this layout is to try to get this as equal as possible. And within that, we are able to provide sliding glass doors, which you can see in this render here, is that blue glass wall on the back of the view. And the purpose of that is they can slide open and we can still have that integrated larger technology space. In addition to this, we are keeping all the messy equipment, the laser cutters, 3D printers in a separate room, which you could stack on that plan. And at the top bar, that's where all the technology equipment be. Students can be monitored through glass walls and use the equipment. And even some of the equipment like foam cutters can be brought into the classroom when necessary. But the intent is to make the classroom spaces as flexible as need to be.
And thank you, Richard and Lauren. And at John Jay High School, there's a lot of exciting things going on. The B wing renovation is only slightly tweaked from what you saw pre-bond. We'll definitely have these 2 opening commons, which are going to be informal learning areas. And still some classrooms. The toilet renovations have sort of evolved to be single-user toilets, so we're not recreating the old multi-user toilets. We're doing that in C wing as well. So whenever we're renovating toilets, which is a better option in today's world. So the center area of the corridor is still proposed to be lifted up, and light will come in the sides, which is a little different than our pre-bond concept. But this works better from a number of perspectives. And you can see that this wing will not look anything like what it looks like today. So it's going to really feel brand new. The windows in place, that won't be replaced, but you'll have these informal learning areas as well as small breakout spaces in the end. And we think it's pretty exciting. And then C wing has also undergone a transition where we actually have one fewer lab, but they're larger, so they will meet the SED standards for high school science labs. So we think this is what you did in your last 2 bonds, was you created science rooms that are full size, and rather than renovating undersized room, after some discussion, it came to consensus that it makes more sense to create the full size rooms. We're sort of renovating that whole area just outside here. It used to be an outside wall, so it will no longer look like an exterior wall. Those aluminum fronts will be gone. And we've been able to find 2 collaborative spaces that are pretty decent size. So you'll have seminar rooms for 10 to 15 and 15 to 20, which gives the high school some additional programming options. And also there'll be individual toilet rooms sort of right opposite us here. So it's going to be a completely new C wing. This is some of the images of what the interiors will look like, which if you've been in, look nothing less today. And then probably one of the more visible changes to the high school will be the closure of the front entrance. This also has a security vestibule. At the middle school and high school, we're able to create security vestibules that are not in the student pathway. So this will allow students to pass to the gym in both schools without interacting with visitors who haven't been vetted yet. So the level of separation is a better achieved at the middle school and high school, which tend to see more visitors. This is the existing front, and this is the proposed front. So we're actually going to recoat the metal roof and put a new facade on with some masonry and a lot more glass. And the visitor entrance will be off to the right. So after students are in the building, all the other doors will lock. Visitors will have to go to the visitor entrance and get buzzed in, vetted, and then led into the building. And what the interior will look like, we're still working on the windows on the right side, but it's going to feel like an interior space. We are moving the curb out a few feet, and that'll be mirrored on the other side where it'll be pushed back. So you'll still have that space in front, but a little bit of site work and drainage. And that's our presentation. There's more on the website, and we'll continue to feed you information as things progress. Just one update from today was actually that one of the projects that was added was some grant funding for HVAC replacement. And that is being reviewed by SED as of today. So that took a lot less than 16 weeks, which is good because we have a deadline to get that grant money spent, and they know it. So that is moving forward. I'm happy to take questions. Hope it didn't take too long.
Thank you very much. It's so exciting to see the renderings. It all looks amazing, and I appreciate the time that you took to moving from the initial plans to this phase to really get feedback back from our buildings so that we're responding to the needs of our buildings in a way that is collaborative. I think that's trick and lead to a better outcome. So I don't have questions. I don't know if anyone has questions. Rory,
I just have an observation, and Russ, I wonder if you wouldn't mind on the very slide that we're on right now. I found this really insightful when you first shared it with me a week or so ago, to understand sort of the process that you have to go through in order to get approval from New York State. And, you know, it's not just, okay, we have the money, so let's get going. Could you just walk us through those 5 verticals there so that the community can understand sort of what takes time to essentially break ground on some of the projects?
Well, when you do a bond project, there's by state law, you're only allowed out as a school district to do conceptual design and establish a budget. Because before voters approve the funding, you can't expend design expenses for 100% design. So we work with you to put a concept together and a budget. We did that. And then once it's done, you hire us and we build out the team. You'll notice you're seeing a lot more than just me anymore, which is great. But there's a design process, just mechanical and structural engineers. We had to do surveys, we had to do test borings. So it's quite a process. You brought on a construction manager, and you know it takes about a year, which is we thought it would take. The review process is a building permit. So public schools are not permitted locally. The building permit is issued through Albany. So it's both a funding review, so you get state aid, and a building permit. It's the combined process. So there's 2 things that happen at once. Again, we thought that would be happening for like 10 weeks when we voted, but they changed the process. Now it seems to be at 16 weeks. And they're obligated to go to public bid, which can be a 2-month process of bidding and vetting contractors, and then you enter into construction. So it is not anything like a private sector process, and happy to help explain it, but we're moving pretty quickly. And again, it was important to take the time to listen to your at the building level. We didn't have that time to get into that level of detail, nor did we want to raise expectations before funding was approved. So we believe in active listening is really important, and we're taking that time. And even while the projects are at SED, we're going to go back to each building and say, hey, here's what finally came out. And we're going to show them colors and finishes and work with the construction manager on how the construction will happen so everyone is safe, and they're going to have input into that as well. Thank you.
I got it.
Yeah, go ahead.
If the bids come in higher than anticipated, do we have to go back to the drawing board and resubmit to SED, or is there some leeways?
So yeah, it's we have 5 projects, many millions of dollars. This will be a somewhat messy process. Not every set of bids is going to come in where we expect. We are going through a process now, have drawings finalized, estimating and comparing to our bond budgets, and the construction manager is doing the same thing. And we're probably going to be identifying things that are alternates, so that you have a base bid that we believe, to the best of our knowledge, you can afford, and then an add, like the 2 rooms at Increase Miller, or maybe additional flooring replacement, and we do that in an open, transparent way. But what we try to do is permit the maximum scope, so that if we have to cut back, we're not going back to SED. Right. And part of our thinking with your additional capital projects was, you have to cut back, at least you'll have a permit for those. So you can them in future years without going to SED again. But it would be highly unusual that any change would require us to go back to SED.
Thank you.
I have some questions. With the security areas, you know, these full doors of going into KES now, and a lot of the exterior doors at Miller. What kind of security? I'm assuming we'll have security glass there. It's, you know, unfortunately in the world we're living in, these are things we have to consider, that somebody can't come in and take out that glass and gain entry in an easy way. Is that something that SED?
We're working to do the right thing. We really don't want to talk detail about where each measure is, but there's a laminated glass, there's films that will be employed in the appropriate areas.
Great, thank you.
It's very exciting. I have to have more kids who can.
Take advantage.
That's unlikely to get state approval. Am I correct to that Katona Elementary will have air conditioning? And
yes.
You mentioned J&J Middle School will?
Portions of it.
Portions.
Oh, that's exciting.
That was in the pre-bond concept. There was quite a bit of discussion about it. You know, Katona Elementary is, we think it's going to be a landmark type process. We're putting a next generation heating system in a last generation building that deserves to be restored. Mm-hmm. So it'll be mostly powered by the ground source heat pump. There will be some electric heat pumps as well, but we're moving away from the fossil fuel system at that location.
And that was particularly doable at Katona because it's because an older building, or because it was.
Well, the reason Katona was mostly selected is because its fossil fuel heating system is done.
Yeah.
It's at the end of its
So it had to be taken out anyway. And I think that, you know, the discussions with the committee pre-bond was, this is step one of a process. And for example, at the middle school, where we're adding electric heat pumps, are sort of at the extremities of the building. And then you'll gradually peel back your fossil fuel system as you phase in electric or ground source heat pump systems. Mm-hmm. But it's also important, the committee and the board, that you approved it as well, was that you get the maximum useful life out of the money already invested in your buildings. So we're not taking anything offline that still works. Mm-hmm. But we're taking things offline that need to be replaced anyway.
I really appreciate the attention. We were just in Tona this week, and it really is a one building. So I appreciate the attention to try to maximize that.
I've always said it's my favorite school building. It's a 1939 WPA building, and you know, it needs a bit of love, and you know, everyone knows that there was prioritization process, but I think that the entrance will work, and the way of bringing ductwork through the building, you'll see a bunch of ceiling work, and that the new library is going to be really bright. We're also replacing the gym windows, which you may have noticed are plastic. So, you know, that's also part of the scope there.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Are we moving the handicap park somewhere that's in front of the middle school theater?
Yes, it's being relocated in that same area.
It just goes up one tier, and there's a handicap ramp down at level that actually bypasses that amphitheater. So you have the same amount of spot. It just pushes some of the standard parking a little further away.
It's very exciting to think there's a year's time, or just about a year's time, we've come this far. And thanks community for supporting the bond referendum, and thank you to your entire team and to Triton for your partnership. It's great to see these slides come into focus, and the renderings are beautiful. Really appreciate hearing from you tonight.
Well, all I do with the rigs is ask people to make them. These people who do all that work.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you very, very much for being here and for your continued work on the project. And we look forward to future updates. And very exciting. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are at public comment. I don't believe, I'm going to double check last I looked, no one has signed up to speak during public comment, so we'll move past that to item on the agenda, consent agenda. I don't believe there's anything that we're pulling out of the consent agenda. Does anyone have anything they wanted pulled out? Great, so would someone like to move the consent agenda? Moved by Lorraine, seconded by Bill R. All those in favor? Aye. 0, great. Thank you, and I think we have a gift, two gifts, I'm gonna find them. Okay, so 1401 is a resolution regarding some donations and gifts. And I would like to recognize the Meadow Pond Elementary School PTO for a monetary gift of $1,698.16 for new entry mats. And we've also received a donation from Advanced Literacy for grades K through 12 literacy mascots in the value of $190 for Katona Elementary School. So would someone like to make a motion to accept the gifts? Marjorie? Seconded by Bill S. All those in favor?
Aye.
6-0.
What are literacy mascots? Sorry.
We'll get back to you.
It sounds interesting. So
Yes.
They're stuffed animals.
Probably stuffed
They're like
animals.
stuffed animals
Oh,
that are associated with that.
fun.
They can read too.
So we are at item 1501, board dialogue and discussion. I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew that Ilana, who's is actually at the New York State School Board conference in Buffalo. So hopefully she'll bring us an update during next meeting. So thank you for making the trip to Buffalo, and I think they're interesting sessions, and look forward to hearing back from her. And Marjorie for representing us on the resolutions committee that had a marathon meeting. We update that as well.
Thank you, my pleasure. Yeah, the resolutions committee met. The business meeting has been decoupled from the conference, and we met a week ago Monday, and delegates from across the state voted on those 56 resolutions that we had talked about previously, I think at the August 24th meeting, and that Andrew and his team had researched just a few of them for our edification. And it was very productive. The information, the outcome of the meeting is available on this website. There were a couple of surprises, a couple of resolutions that just squeaked past. I think it had a brief discussion regarding some resolutions pertaining to TV legislation, for example, and in fact, a resolution to repeal the governor's mandate passed, which I do think is just worth considering when you think about the different perspectives across the state, you know, that a resolution to that effect would have passed. Resolution is essentially to ask NYSBA to advocate on the delegates' behalf to repeal the EV mandate legislation, as compared to another resolution that also passed that requested a feasibility study. You know, so this was a resolution was more envisioned to be let's say, supportive of the new legislation, but just more information to help school districts anticipate what the real impact will be to the bottom line, to infrastructure needs, partnerships with electric companies, you know, a lot of unknown variable there. So a resolution for the feasibility study did pass, but so did a resolution asking NYSBA to advocate. And this actually does go to why we have sometime talked about the reality that WestPut, which is a more regional advocacy enterprise representing Westchester counties, you know, oftentimes we find that district in this region, our needs are somewhat more consistently aligned as a region than we are with NYSBA, which is representing the entirety of the state of New York. You know, we live in a really interesting state with diverse perspectives.
I think you answered this before for me, that is it sort of like the Senate where it's not by population?
Right.
So even though there's more people down here, everybody votes on an equal basis.
Not only that, but it's also completely at a board's discretion as to it even sends a voting delegate.
Oh.
And back in the day when business meeting was part of the annual NYSBA meeting, delegates had to actually go cast their ballot. But now that the meeting has been decoupled, it's a Zoom, it's a Google meeting, and more districts are sending voting delegates, but not all. So some school districts really are not represented at this business meeting at all.
Each district to vote.
Correct. Exactly.
Marjorie, do you have a sense of how influential NISBA can be on the winner's perspective? And if we go to advocate for repeal, does that have any weight?
I think it's a great question, and I would say that the advocacy can be very effective most often when there is a unified, I'll say, voice from the superintendent's organization, the Lower Hudson Council of School Superintendents, and you've also got your New York State School Superintendents organization, the Midwest, but each region has its own regional advocacy arm. And I would, to the extent that there's, sort of uniformity of an advocacy agenda item, that's where typically NISBA is most effective. I don't think we're going to see a comparable resolution on the EV legislation coming out of the superintendent's organization, for example, or the other regional organizations. And NISBA, like all organizations, has to prioritize. There were 56 resolutions. I think 35 of them passed. And this is just, one little domain. But definitely, I think that the folks from NISBA probably woke up the day after the meeting thinking, they had received some interesting messages from the voting delegates. And this would just be one example from my perspective of an interesting message.
Can I just add as clearly as possible
Please.
for anyone who watched this video recording at home at some later date, the New York State bus electrification mandate has not been repealed. This was just a resolution passed by the New York State School Association to advocate in that direction.
Correct. And we bring it up here only to make the point that across the state of New York, you've got people voting on advocacy initiatives, coming from very different perspectives, and in cases very rural districts that are really afraid they'll never be able to meet the terms of the mandate, and other districts who have financial hardship, it's unfathomable to them, and I think that other resolution requesting feasibility study will really be helpful to all school districts. Hopefully, if we can get to that.
And that these are. Yeah,
I hope so.
And that these are just resolutions that the New York State School Board Association is going to advocate for. So it's not, there's no legislation involved in this process.
Absolutely.
No, but it is interesting to live in a very diverse state.
Yes.
Yeah. We're a public school, as was stated earlier, operating environment where we think about the laws that affect everything, including new legislation around how we transport students. And it's interesting to see the reaction that's had across the state.
Andrew, do you want to?
Yeah, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
So at our last planning meeting, Julia and Alana, or maybe it was even sometime earlier than that, asked if following that first Learning Cafe, I would give some synopsis. So just to give everybody a sense of learning, thanks again, so many board members were at the most recent one, but for those who aren't familiar, we refer to our Learning Cafe as a conversation with the community. So at this particular cafe, we had about 40 people in the room in total, and it was split almost evenly between members of the staff and members of the community. There was one brave student in the group, and the rest were parents. And we do 3 rounds of very relatively short presentations, and then there are conversations at all these different tables that people are seated at, and we have a note taker the district at each of those, and we capture, in this case, notes from I think there were about 7 tables, so multiply 7 times 3, 21 tables worth of notes come back to us that capture all the discussion that happens at those tables through the night. So I had the opportunity to go through those notes, there's a lot of them, and just capture a few to share with you tonight. Topic was artificial intelligence. We always anticipate that people will come with different expectations about the conversation might be and different levels of back. We're never surprised that we have great expertise in our community. So there were some software coaches in the audience that night who came knowing a great deal about generative AI. And then there were layperson members of the community who didn't know as much and were interested to learn more. We try to do a little bit of level setting. We did some live demos of what ChatGPT can do for students, for staff, for parents. We showed some of that, and then we really asked, I think, for people to focus on What are some of the concerns they might have and reasons to be hesitant about technology? What are the hopes and causes for optimism they might have? And not surprisingly, there was a diversity of opinions around the room. Although I think it's fair to say that on balance, more optimism than concern, which was kind of nice to hear. I would say that from those with a little bit more expertise, there's some short-term concern around how quickly this has all unfolded and how widely and fast it's been disseminated. We made some analogies to earlier technological evolutions, and this one, I think people will agree, has gone that much more rapidly and spread that much more widely so quickly. And that's a concern even for those who know a great deal. But then those folks have less of a long-term concern and see it being integrated well into kind of what we do. For those less familiar, there's a little bit more concern, maybe some of the anxiety that comes along when we just don't know where something's going to go, don't know exactly what to do. There was quite a bit of consensus around the hopes that people have, the ways that AI shows potential for providing more individualized feedback, more real-time feedback for individual students. How we saw examples of how it can act in the role of a tutor, and that prompted a great deal of hope and optimism in the room, and really is that it can sort of individualize the specific needs of individual children. And there seemed to be quite a consensus around the idea that so long as we maintain the perspective that it's a helpful tool in service to the larger mission of developing and connecting humans who are ethical and responsible and hence of caring for one another, as long as it's sort of in its place with parameters around it, I think there's a lot of sense in the room that this could be an amazing tool. The fears come when people start to imagine it not having parameters around it, growing into something larger and larger, perhaps uncontrollable. Understand concerns about AI being used as a shortcut, something that would lessen the needs for students to do their own thinking and creating. But again, I think on the whole, in balance, people felt that as long as that in some ways it could keep us that much more focused on what we see as the most goals of developing critical and creative thinkers who know how to use the tools that the world provides them. That is very much our mission, and that if that remains the case, this could in that sense be a really wonderful tool. So that's a very brief synopsis of many pages of notes that we have still to go through and understand more about that. But it was I think again, the people who were there, and this is so often the case at our learning cafes, really seem to appreciate the opportunity to interact with staff, with other community members, conversations. It's always hard to stop the rounds of a conversation. I never like being the one day you have to stop talking now. We've got to move on. But it's also great that there's so much energy around it. So it was a really nice night. And thanks again to everybody, my colleagues who were there was that night. Any question?
I think it's a good point you make that it's a tool that's here, it's going to change, it's going to develop. People in the modern economy are going to have to learn how to use it.
Yeah.
It's, when the internet came out, you have to learn how to use it.
Right.
So it'll be interesting, it'll be this generation that will make the most of it.
And I don't think I said that, but that was another theme, kind of asking us not to be afraid of it, understand it, figure out the best ways to use it, and don't just try to push it away and imagine that it's not here to stay, because it seems like it is.
For me, I thought one of the most important parts of your presentation, and thank you, it was really thoughtful, laid out presentation, the entire administration and staff, was looked back at prior technologies like the invention of the radio, television, and internet, and the headlines that those technologies made back in the day. It was all doom and gloom, even to the point where Socrates had warned us all about writing and the evils that writing might bring upon us.
Yeah.
And so I think that AI definitely has potential pitfalls in the short term, but it does seem, and I'm glad that there was consensus, but that there was many that feel that it will bring opportunities. All stakeholders.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I do think that the perspective around the speed of the availability of the technology was really interesting. I hadn't thought about it. Like, if you think about something like the printing press was a technology that probably took many years before every community had access to and the ability to print large scale documents. It might have been was one printing press in a certain state, and then slowly there were more states, and so people had the opportunity to sort of absorb what does it mean to publish multiple versions of something and disseminate information in a bigger scale. For this kind of happened like that, and so we're after the fact kind of help people to be introduced to the technology. So I hadn't thought of it in that perspective. I thought that was a very interesting way to think about it, and it just means we're sort of adding the bumpers as we go rather than them sort of being slowly built along the way. Does anyone have any other items for board discussion?
I just had a question. As we're changing the way our libraries look and act and the way the children are changing how they use libraries, and we probably have this, just don't know, do we have electronic book licenses that they're able to use different resources?
We do.
So we definitely do.
Yeah.
One of the programs is Bookshare, and we use that specifically for students. Students need audiobooks, but there are several different programs that we have access to.
Because I can envision one day we're not going to have books around in a library that everybody's going to have, which I hate to think about, but there will be a time where people are like, we don't want the written book, and we're using materials in a different way. Like my children don't buy textbooks in college anymore. They rent them electronically, and they return them at the end of the semester. So I just didn't know if we're going to incorporate more electronic resources so that they can.
This was one positive came out of the conversation regarding the middle school library being offline, is that I do think the middle school librarian and the classroom teachers are raising awareness about exactly the kinds of resources that you're asked about, and that the kids are being encouraged to check out electronic versions of books, because it's not just the library, but books themselves are actually off temporarily.
It's interesting. I mean, I have my kids laugh at me at the number of books I have. And as they're getting older, I've moved to my Kindle more for traveling, and my children actually prefer books. So it's just an interesting development where they're so in tune to electronics, but mine are a little different. So it's good that we're giving them the resources that they need to access.
Yeah.
My family is very much a library family, and it's interesting, the local libraries, for example, and more about you borrow things and you return things, you don't go to the library, you access it online, and it's wonderful. They have, ebooks, they have audiobooks, so I think that the role of a library is actually going to be expanding. Just the amount of information you can get access to, and I think part of the role of a school is going to be teaching in this wealth of information. You have the learner, the future citizens have to be able to interpret information correctly and weigh it, and I think that's going to be a challenge. But the role of the library, I think, is only expanding.
I think you would have been very encouraged to be present at some of the focus groups our archives facilitated with our school librarians, who were, really kind of envisioning the future of our libraries, and who were really advocating for kids and teachers and their utilization of the space, and for books, for both. And it was nice to hear Russ saying that he felt that a lot of that listening really helped to influence some of the design concepts that we saw today, because it is expensive. The elementary schools is really having their library space transformed. Yeah.
Right, if there's no further discussion, we'll talk about future meetings. So tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, the policy committee will be meeting in the district office conference room. And then next Friday, the sustainability committee will be meeting at 8:15 in the middle school ACR room. And then Thursday, November 16th is our next board meeting at 7:30 here in the library. We have a finance meeting on Tuesday, November 21st in the district office conference room. And then the last November meeting will be on Thursday, November 30th here at 7:30 in the library. And that is it. Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Seconded by Lorraine. All those in favor?
Aye.
6-0. Thank you.
Thank you.